Now, I'm not trying to sow great doubt or insecurity in you, but invite you to look at your own beliefs, to examine the belief formation process in real time in experience. What's it like to believe something to varying degrees, or to outright not believe something, or to reject a statement, and show you that you have the power to question beliefs even more so. And when you're ready, we can bring this meditation, contemplation to an end. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not my intention to spark any great debates between us here. Just think it's something good to check in with. It's sort of easy to take on beliefs, to regurgitate other people's beliefs, to not update our beliefs in a while because we haven't sort of looked at them and questioned them. So we kind of have that metacognition on like, oh, I keep saying this thing. Do I continue to actually think that's so relevant? The importance of this, of how it shapes our practice and how we spend our time and our lives, really. Yeah. I'd be very curious to hear what you guys thought of this. And great. Oh, that's super to hear. Yeah, the reactions around like the clingings to belief. It's interesting. We can acclimatize to a belief, and then it's normalized, and then it feels sort of neutral in the system, and then maybe we don't realize how much attachment we have it until it starts getting attacked or questioned or something like that, and there's a reaction, and all sorts can happen. Otherwise, there's like other beliefs that I don't have a strong opinion on, that can come and go. It could go either way, yes or no, whatever. All of this, and then so to have this understanding of the like you're saying, the kind of phenomenology around just beliefs in general, and so you can kind of pick and swap and match different beliefs, right? Swap out different propositions, which gives you, I think, an ability to have just some more self-awareness, and question your beliefs, and notice that the reaction could be different. It's like, oh, I don't necessarily have to have this tight clinging reaction to this belief, because actually there's other people who could consider the same belief and have a different reaction towards it. And so how do I know I'm having the right reaction? Is this an appropriate reaction around this kind of belief? That was great. Yeah, really glad you got so much out of this. Yeah. And I think this is just a really cool dimension of which to start understanding belief propositions and such as a real relational process. So you can like, where are you at in the process around this belief? Are you begrudgingly accepting it? Are you reticent to accept it? You kind of like vehemently don't want to accept it? Are you delighted to hear that? Is that a novel insight that unlocks something for you? And like, oh, I never considered it that way. I can feel differently. And then later on, you try on the same proposition, and it's like, yeah, I've heard that 100 times now. I'm like so over that. Yeah. How much we're like invested in the beliefs, or how personal or kind of linked to protecting a bar of survival. And um, it's interesting to consider what kind of different categories or ways of categorizing types of beliefs there are. some I thought of as like, you know, what seems really outsourced, or like someone else is just saying this is the case and you're kind of picking it up, versus what's a belief that you've personally gone on the journey in order to come to, holding. Um, Beliefs, how we position in time, what, and sort of the weighing up of what credence we afford to beliefs about the past versus the present versus the future. How much are we projecting into the future? Is that rightly so? Thank you. Yeah, I really want to encourage so much more questioning. I just, especially in this space, I just see a lot of, um, yeah, parroting, this sort of spiritual cliches and platitudes that then bind us, or form the shape of our practice, or what we think is possible, right? And then we don't realize, maybe we're like, this term enlightenment. What are we talking about? Like, what do we actually mean there? It's a very gross abstraction. Can you even fill it in? Or does it have a place? Or, yeah, I mean, just open. Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm right there with you. Yeah, and I love that you shared that. This is, yeah, I just want to like, yeah, invite you guys to question the appropriateness of certain beliefs and how we do the chunking and the lumping. So, okay, there's a lot we maybe agree with in Buddhism. What is Buddhism? Like, other than, there are lots of minds and a kind of general mimetic space and people. Do we really think that, like, yeah, people back 2,500 years ago around the Buddha were um like so importantly different from us? I mean, maybe yes or no, but in what ways were they important? Can we get more granular, sort of specifics with what are we believing? And um, it we have to outsource to a degree. We can't. There's just isn't. We don't have the minds or the time to figure everything out ourselves or experience everything. Um, So it doesn't mean like, or throw away nothing you haven't experienced for yourself, but can you appropriately hold it? You know, should it be equally weighted compared to things maybe we're more justified to be sure of these days and around us? Are there important um, cultural and context differences from what other people in history in a different geographical location, spoke a different language, thought and talked about? Uh, yeah, yeah. What do we really see the evidence for? It's just, yeah, it's so interesting how the mind can take sets of beliefs and run with them. Sort of opens that conversation about mimetic sort of pollination and sharing, and you just kind of get into like just spaces where there's just this presumption about, this is how things are. Okay, these are the founding myths, whatever we're going to buy into, and now we're going to go shape our lives, go in this direction because we're taking all these presumptions on board. Yeah, yeah. And I think there is I mean, there's something to be said about, in different topics, like the Dunning-Kruger effect, I guess. In different topics, once you sort of gain more competence in them, you maybe kind of see things more clearly, or get the gist, or you're able to get into more complications around that topic. And then there is like a individuation process, where maybe you sort of go your own route and think, actually, no, what do I really consider? There's something called like the narcissism of small differences, where you have like experts in an area highly debating very, very small, subtle discrepancies, and then they kind of blow up into these massive disputes. But like from any layman perspective, it's like, Yeah, you're basically saying the same thing apart from like one little thing that's different. But does that have great significance? Oh, I mean, yeah, again, a whole thing, and sort of coming to understand like more of this stuff as like processes and journeys you go on. I mean, kind of more of these days where I've come to is there's this real integration with what was like previously considered independent semantic thought processes from the rest of the phenomenal environment, and such as this merging is seen as like no, all phenomenal experience contains beliefs or information in a way, or these considerations, and then a process of like being able to read the information in the hearing, in the seeing, in the feeling, and then sort of seeing how that's very fluid and changing, and um, um, coming to find like no independent entities of themselves. So it's all like relational, and there isn't a separate thing that has a judgment apart from something else. It's like co-creation with all of this. Yeah, and then um, kind of an estimation of what I see as a theme of, if I put words on it, like a more mature, healthy kind of mind is one that doesn't sink into black and white absolutist thinking, is to be able to hang out more in the nuance and the grays, is the ability to just hold either consideration more lightly and never fully buy into either consideration, or that either in a statement it's deterministic or there is free will or control, is capable of wholly accurately describing kind of the metaphysics, the nature of these things, noticing when the mind cycles through uh, believing it, rejecting it, to what different degrees, like holding both in mind or neither nor. I see that as a fluid cycle the mind goes through. This Nagarjuna's fourfold reasoning: X, not X, both X and not X, neither X nor not X. Um, and then maybe something interesting to look into, and I think the Keegan stages of cognitive development are sort of tracking this. When you get to like Keegan 5, it's really understanding, like coming to a place that's the mind is so fluid and relational that we're not necessarily trying to make concretized statements about reality as it is for all time, all contexts, but there's just an appropriateness in the moment of like, oh, let's try on this idea and we're playing with it. And then in the next moment, the conditions are different as such that we might say something totally else. And it's not a contradiction or a paradox to having moved, the mind sort of moving and entertaining between saying X or not X, you know. Yeah, it goes into really interesting places. Where I speculate like this can go, so I'll say this. So okay, try to give like a live demonstration. Um, I'm gonna suggest a statement, but I recognize it is a projection into the future, which I don't actually have. Is not my experience, and I haven't experienced this in a sustainable way. But I'm kind of speculating where I see a vector, and then I'm like, oh, if it was like this, but more of this, what would this go? So I say all that. When you like integrate thinking in with all the other senses, so much so, this is where I see the potential that in some, Buddhist texts and such, they talk about an attainment where there's no thoughts, right? There's no languaging, semantic content thoughts. Um, when you're able to like it's just imbued, the kind of the meaning is just imbued throughout the sensorium, the experience space, and the seeing and the hearing and the feeling. There wouldn't be this sense of a sort of detached, separate like types of semantic thoughts, right? And so I could imagine like, oh, it's like think so much, like it's like actually just like spread, like it's all thinking, it's all thinking, it's all thinking. And then one interpretation of that could be, if it's all thinking, then there is no thinking. I don't. But again, like I see a potential there. It is speculation. I'm kind of like amused by the idea, and I hold it lightly and am willing to change my mind on that. So, and it's like how we also um, talk about thoughts. So there's sometimes um, I kind of like to point out, talking about there just being five senses, opposed to in like Buddhism they talk about six sense, like separate sort of mind thinking sense. But also sometimes I talk about six senses as well. It's like, when is there an appropriateness, or what might be useful to the situation to talk about six senses or five senses, or relate at a different level of abstraction. So just maybe for people who don't know, what was interesting about that moment for me, there was kind of this before and after shift for me, and it's very relevant to tonight, this topic, because I was in a philosophy lecture. It was the last seminar actually of the semester, and is it epistemology class? And I asked my professor a question, and I had loaded in mind that I thought he was going to answer, let's say, A. Right, I think like I'm asking him this because I kind of wanted confirmation that like the professor, the authority figure, is going to go, yeah, it's A. And I was looking at him, and he went, yeah, and then answered B. He answered the other way, and in my mind, I I just had this expectation, and then I released and accepted, and it like all very quick, released and accepted. Oh, okay, something else, So I like dropped the belief, and then there was a cessation, and I like eyes open, like the whole world flashed and disappeared, and then came back. And so it was really interesting how something about having the expectation sort of prime and loaded, and then in an instant really accepting a different reality and dropping and switching. You know, and like me being okay with that. I was sort of like invested and then okay with something else very, very quickly. And that had the effect of like, boom. And that was a very before and after moment in my life. That's what I call like my stream entry moment, because it just, life was not the same after that moment. And also, yeah, like what I kind of wanted to point out with this meditation contemplation is that meditation can be analytical. It can be a thinking process as well. You can make progress in that way. There's a way in which we can miss the trees for the forest, and vice versa. So we got this term, and how much are we reifying this term, and then we have to like get our experience to fit in with a term. And it's like, is that the right order? And why are we kind of deferring to um different traditions and different cultures, and like, can we not adequately describe this stuff in the modern context and with English or however? um is it helpful? Another big just see area of development is our understanding of frameworks and maps and such, and sort of seeing when are they helpful and clarifying and serving. What's the ability of a mapping in on what's not the map, or what the map is trying to connect to, a sort of a baser reality, a true you know um yeah, so I'm just gonna throw in all those things out. Like, I think what I was trying to do in those videos is describe some phenomenological shifts as I see a pattern for, as I've experienced, and I saw other people go through similar trajectories. I also talk to people who don't go through that trajectory as I laid it out. And need we do a conflation, like a one-to-one connecting with, oh, in this map, it's they have these stages and these numbers, which is like aligned like this, or like this with these other stages and maps? What can stages and maps even do? I think there's something where there is some benefit. There can also be some downsides where it can open up and reveal territory and give us like new ideas for what's possible, what we could do with a mind. But it can also constrain and prison, where we now sort of are working within a box. We can't think outside the box. Yeah. So there's some of my thoughts. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. I don't blame the Zen guy. like, you know what? Fuck all that. Just sit. Yeah, and like, what's the context that led them to lean more in that direction of actually let's not do the specific mapping and such like this. And you can see a spectrum of where we fall in like trying to go detailed in mapping or not. What leads one to a place of wanting to do either, or is it like culturally they went through a process where they got like into really heated debates and map of of trying to map stuff, and it caused a lot of internal fighting. They're like, actually, fuck all this, it's not worth it. Or is it something to do with like culture, genetics, phenotypes, or something, whatever. Yeah. you know, Answering at how I would have understood things back then, and then I could answer of like where I've come to understand things now. There is sort of I would um, feel more confident to say like the immediacy of the present does just color our perception of everything. So there's kind of always an answering from the now. Um, stream entry. This first dart, second dart thing. I I remember there's a kind of structuring of mind in which that does make sense. So you feel like you can place it like, oh yeah, there's the first one and there's the second one, and there's this immediate like 1-2 reaction. There's other states of mind where there's just much more configurations of mind. There's just much more blending, and it's less obvious that you wouldn't even begin to think first dart and second dart. And like how are we categorizing, and sort of what's how the mind compartmentalizes in different ways, where it can do a thing where it recognizes something as a form of suffering, and it doesn't recognize other conditions, afflictions and such, as a form of suffering, and it wants to kind of draw this line in the sand. And then later on you sort of open up and realize like, oh no, that contains elements of the thing before, and more so maybe like in subtler detail. I'm just more sensitive to it now, um, like that. So I'm kind of just um, complicating things. But what I might feel more confident to say as a belief, or kind of like a phrasing I came to shortly after the stream entry moment, and has continued to hold up uh, to this day, is it takes some kind of edge off. It is a way in which, like, um, things. Mm, there was some kind of cushion. I don't know. I just describe like some kind of cushioning, kind of with all phenomena. And the way I describe it is like just like the corners were rounded in experience just a little bit, so there weren't these such spiky, sharp, impactful hurting. There's, I mean, definitely still a lot of suffering, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to. That's what I feel kind of more comfortable saying is some kind of rounding of the corners somehow of phenomena, and maybe actually like this gets me thinking. There's I'm trying to move away from a fourth path model, from like I'm seeing less the appropriateness of appropriating Theravada fourth path model. Like, why do I have to bank on this? Why do I have to try to overfit my experience in with these things? When I just, it doesn't seem so justified to me. But what makes more sense to me is there's a correlation with contraction of phenomena, the degree to which phenomena are contracted. And so if we contract less, we are suffering less. And then like phenomena being in these sort of roughly in these kind of states of matter, of contracted to like solid, liquid, gas, plasma, ether, right? And so maybe we can talk about there's a moment I want to say where you've dissolved all solidity of phenomena. Maybe with stream entry, I might, in line with this kind of framing, I might say like you haven't dissolved all solidity. You by far haven't dissolved all solidity at that moment, but you have like yeah, just rounded the corners or something. Like you've rounded the spiky edges. You know where like it gets. I think about where it gets um iffy and complicated and just like not helpful to try to assess with all people, do they have stream entry or not have stream entry. I think of like people coming from very different traditions, were doing lots of spiritual practice, or they have like you try to communicate with them, you try to understand them, how they describe their experience, um, and it's just you just see it's just not helpful to think like to always keep coming back to, well, how does their journey align with my journey? Did they have this kind of before and after fundamental shift? Where you can we can just postulate there are some people who were born in certain ways, never contracted to degrees that we contracted or had to unlearn. You can imagine like gradual transitions. You can see there are sudden shifts. And also people just like having sufficiently meaningful different types of mind and training in different ways that do different things. And then it's just like I wouldn't even know how to begin to put them onto a framework of which like I've been practicing in this way, or you know, right, right, and then understanding the historical context of that map, right? They believed in karma and rebirth and the importance of stream entry. One of the reasons the importance of stream entry is because like then you've only got 7 more lifetimes. It's like cool, you're like really well consolidated on the path to arhatship and then parinirvana and not being reborn. Um, is that relevant to us? Like, do we hold those beliefs? Do we think so? The fourth path model. It doesn't make sense to separate it from the fetters, right? It really is about fetters, and rebirths. You know, right? That's kind of like essential to that model, and it's like this is a weird way in which we're continuing to talk about it, and a lot of us don't really believe in rebirths, and or at least certainly like the ordering or the number, and the whole feta thing is like incredibly high bar. And do we even aspire to uproot what they're talking about in the fetters? Okay. So I mean, maybe here I want to point out the potential of confounding uh, confusion of like getting lost in sort of quagmire because I elicited that word, because I said stream entry. Now we're off to the races trying to make sense of a term, right? And maybe that's on me. like and like I'm struggling with like, damn, I want to call that a something, and I just like for lack of a different word, another word, right? And maybe like can we again the sort of the forest for the trees and such, like let's just look at the trees, let's get down to sort of tree level. I can talk, I feel more confident talking about just the phenomenology there. And also like I can talk about my personal experience as best as I can and never totally accurately of some experiences I had. And then I will also like extrapolate on the significance of the experience and misinterpret them. And then also we can extrapolate on like, oh, because I had this experience, therefore you guys could have that experience, or other people have had the same experience as me. Or should we have that experience? Right, it sort of opens up all of this. Right, people. Yeah, this was a really great discussion, and I'm very thankful for all of you for coming and participating. Great, great ideas. Yeah.